Facebook has come under intense scrutiny in recent weeks over its business model and the impact it has on our society. Last week, former Facebook employee Frances Haugen testified on Capitol Hill. She claimed that the company was morally bankrupt and put profits over people's safety. While Facebook said that they did not agree with her characterization of the issues, the company did call on Congress to create standard rules for the internet. Some lawmakers have expressed support for regulating Facebook, but questions remain on exactly how to do that. For more, let's bring in Roger McNamee. He is the author of Zucked, Waking Up to the Facebook Catastrophe. Roger, I think it's so interesting to have you comment on this because you were an early investor in Facebook. You were an advisor to founder Mark Zuckerberg. When did you start to notice major issues with the platform, and how did you personally try and get Facebook to address those issues?
So, Lana, I first started to see this at the beginning of 2016 in the context of the New Hampshire primary in the Democratic Party, when I saw hate speech being spread by Facebook groups that were notionally associated with the Bernie Sanders campaign. From there, I started to see issues in civil rights related to a corporation that was using Facebook's ad tools to gather information on people who just expressed an interest in Black Lives Matter, and they were selling it to police departments in violation of civil rights. But the thing that really pushed me over the top was the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom in June of 2016, when I realized, oh my gosh, the same ad tools that make advertisers so successful on Facebook could be used to interfere with an election. And so I wrote a piece. It was really an op-ed for a technology blog. And I sent it to Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg in October of 2016, 9 days before the presidential election, to say to them, and these are two people that I had advised for years and I considered to be friends. And I said, guys, there's something about the culture, the business model, and the algorithms of Facebook that is allowing bad people to hurt innocent people in the context of civil rights and elections. And, you as Facebook do not want to be associated with that. What can I do to help? What can we do to fix this? And they assured me that they were on top of it, that everything was taken care of, and there was nothing to worry about.
Well, you've been sounding this alarm for years, but do you think that Haugen's testimony actually has brought it to a new level to put pressure on both the company and lawmakers to make changes to Facebook's culture and business model? Do you see us actually being at a watershed moment?
I certainly hope so, Lana. So let's put this in context. So Frances Haugen, first of all, she's incredibly courageous. To become a whistleblower, to stand up to power of the scale of Facebook takes courage that very few of us possess. But she's also authoritative. The woman is an expert on the design of algorithms, so she really knows what she's talking about. And then anyone who saw her on 60 Minutes or in front of the Senate subcommittee saw how incredibly convincing she is. So in that sense, she removed the last excuse that Congress, the Justice Department, and state attorneys general have for inaction. She's basically called their bluff and said, okay, you guys said we just need evidence. She's provided us with internal documents created at the request of Facebook management by the experts inside Facebook that show conclusively that in ranges of issues like human trafficking or the psychological problems of teenage girls on Instagram or any one of a dozen other issues, Facebook's management was warned that there were huge issues with the product. And in each case, they prioritized profits over people. And the evidence is conclusive, and there's just no way for Facebook to get around it.
In an op-ed for Time magazine, you write that legislation needs to be created to address not just Facebook, but the entire tech industry. Facebook has said that they'd like to see that. Lawmakers say that they'd like to see that. But the question really is, what does it look like? So what kind of regulation would actually be effective in addressing these problems?
So, Lana, what we have to understand is this is a bigger problem than just Facebook. And I believe that new laws need to be passed in three areas. We need to have laws for safety, privacy, and competition. In terms of safety, we need something that looks like the Food and Drug Administration, but for tech products, to make sure that tech products are actually safe not just when they're released, but on a continuing basis. There are some tech products, and facial recognition, deep fakes would be great examples that shouldn't be allowed at all. And others like Facebook that are incredibly dangerous, but could be made safe with changes in their business model. So that's number one. Number two, privacy. The way these companies work is they gather data from all sources, not just our use of their products, but also financial transactions. Anytime that we get a medical prescription or a medical test, our location from smartphones, any apps we use, anything that we do when we're browsing, they get all that data and they create a model of what we're like. And they look at everybody's models together to figure out the common patterns. And then they can use the model of each of us to predict our behavior. And on top of that, they have recommendation engines that can manipulate our behavior without our being aware of it. So that has to stop. I think that that business model, which is called surveillance capitalism, is as unethical as child labor and should be banned for the same reason. And that under any circumstances, the notion that intimate data like location, health, financial, browser history, and app usage, that should not be something that can be used in any third-party context. I can give it to a company for a service, but they can't do anything else with it, and they certainly can't sell it or trade it to another company. And then lastly, we need something for competition, because the laws that we have to protect competition in our economy, they were created more than 100 years ago. And we need to have an update for the 21st century. And these are things that Congress is going to work on. But at the same time, we need to recognize that legislation will take years, and we don't have years. So we need to use the criminal justice system to bring to justice people when they do stuff that is criminally wrong. And I'll take human trafficking as an example. It is clearly a felony to have human trafficking. Price fixing, which Google and Facebook have been accused of by the state of Texas, that is also a felony, as is there are literally half a dozen things that Facebook is guilty of. But we have to remember, it's not just Facebook. There are all these other companies throughout the economy adopting that same business model. I tried to buy a concert ticket the other day, and Ticketmaster would not let me buy it until I gave them my cell phone number and they verified that it was real. That is absolutely wrong. You shouldn't have to give up personal information to get a COVID test. And all these things are about that same business model being applied in new ways, and we have to stamp it out.
Roger, your point, especially on surveillance capitalism, being something that our government could say is morally bankrupt, and we don't allow, and the reminder that our government has in fact done that throughout history with saying child labor, that there are labor laws and things like that, does give us some hope that there is a possibility that that this wild west of the internet might be pushed or nudged in a healthier direction for society. And you've written a lot and discussed before the long-term consequences of failing to rein in Facebook and, as you say, other large companies who would fill the void if it's just directed at Facebook. But I want to ask you, Roger, how long you think we actually have to do that as a society before it becomes too late and the repercussions of this are something that we can't put back into the bottle?
Lana, I do not know the answer to how long it's going to be, but I do know this, that when I first started talking about this publicly in 2017, I could not imagine that Facebook would play a role in undermining the country's response to a pandemic, much less that they would play a role in the insurrection that took place at the Capitol. I never contemplated either one of those events happening. So we have to look at this and recognize that the harm being done today is affecting all of us, even if we don't use these products. And so I really am pushing Congress hard. And I think if every one of our viewers called their member of Congress and said, you must pass laws for safety, for privacy, and for antitrust, that would be a fantastic thing, because they need to hear from all of us. This affects all of us. We all have a stake. And I look at the issue with kids, and we know that Instagram was designed to make kids envious. That's the whole model, is you make people look better on Instagram than they look in real life. And then all of a sudden, envy sets in and people spend money to make themselves look better. It's a great business model if you don't care about the kids. That kind of thing is going on throughout the economy. TikTok is the latest guy doing it. And right now, the government has a role to do this. It did it with food. Remember, in 1900, the food supply was unsafe. We created the FDA. to make food safe. In the 50s, chemicals were unsafe. They just dumped toxic waste anywhere they felt like, and that poisoned people. We passed laws to fix that. We can do this. We're America. We can make this stuff work. And it's just a matter of all of us insisting and saying, I'm sorry, you can't go on vacation until you do something about this.
I appreciate your clear-eyed caution and your optimism that we can get it done. Roger McNamee, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Lana.